just ended up on the sofa.
Peggy got smuggled in, huh?
Well, smuggled is one way of putting it. So, this podcast thing.
So,
do
how do we start an intro?
we need an intro?
I mean, I don't even know. What
do they do on YouTube? You used to have that whoosh thing and you have like your shit throw up, right? You have that stuff pop up on the screen. So I can have like Petrol Sunny come up here.
I can have Petronet will come up as well. Why are we starting Fully Fueled Studios?
Well, I guess it's something we've almost inadvertently been doing for a while anyway, without obviously the media, without recording things.
Yeah.
But just naturally being petrol heads and BMW M fans and all the rest of it. I think doing it now as like a platform or as a source of entertainment, or whatever you want to call it, is just formalising it in a way. I know the girls have always been like, you guys should do a podcast.
Yeah, everyone said it to us, right? Everyone said you should do a podcast. You guys should. All you do is talk about cars, and that's what it became, right?
That's it. And now I can actually do it as well because of what I'm now doing for work versus where I was a couple of years ago. I've got time and space now to do it. So I think this is going to be fun.
Brilliant. Yeah, no, it's it's definitely an adventure, if you like, and I guess the name Fully Fueled. I think it's pretty fair to say that we spent quite a lot of time.
It took a while to come up with a good name.
Yeah, for sure.
But it was a lot of just a lot of going back and forth, trying to come up with something that was relevant, something that sounded good, looked good as well. Yeah. Especially with the stickers and the branding and all that. So I was never massively into cars to begin with. Really, I mean, just growing up, we've had loads of different cars in the family, and we've had some cool cars and all that, but I never really paid attention to cars. Yeah. Not to the extent we're doing so now. Yeah. So for me, it was really just a case of having a first car, which was a Peugeot 306, I think.
Okay.
Just
fair enough.
Typical first car. And then after that, it was onto a 320i. Okay. Yeah. Which again, compared to what we're doing now, not massively impressive. Yeah. But from going from the Peugeot to a 320i was a pretty big step. It's
a big step. No, for sure, a big step.
And it was it was.
And that was what, an E90, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So that was then we had that, and that was good for a while, until it pretty much went through the list of problems that when you Google a E90 320i and it comes up with known faults and known issues, by the time I'd actually got around to Googling it, I'd had all of the issues. The timing chain, jumping and breaking the plastic rails.
Oh God.
The oil leak. Yeah. The oil leak again, and then the oil leak the third time. Okay. It had issues, so then we ended up getting rid of that, and that's when we got the M140i. That's kind of where, for me, that's where the car journey kind of started. Right. Because for a day job, obviously you all know this, but anyone else watching, this is the first episode, so you wouldn't really know, but my day job isn't anything to do with cars. I'm an ethical hacker. So my day job doesn't involve me, doing anything to do with cars apart from driving as a consultant. So for me, the whole car thing is a bit of an outlet in terms of not spending so much time, or spending all my free time indoors, sitting at a computer, tapping away at a keyboard, doing whatever it is I'm doing. Yeah. So when I had the 140i, I kind of just decided that it would be good to make the most of it. So the 140i is, as you're well aware, was a special car. Absolutely. Unique, something that perhaps shouldn't have existed. The car itself and having that platform at the time, that's kind of where it started. That's where Petrol Sunny started for me. That's where it was a case of, I've got this vehicle where it's pretty special, it's pretty cool. So I mean, I was at work when I was looking at cars, and I got a phone call back from BMW to say the oil leak was going to cost the same as the current value of the car, and that's when I was like, oh well, this isn't going to work. So I started looking and talked to one of my colleagues at the time, and he was like, well, why don't you watch Joe Achilles? And I was like, what's that? You want to find out BMW or 140? Like, he's got some really good videos. So went on YouTube. First time I'd seen Joe Achilles, and watched his 440i video, 340i, and then eventually the M140i, and that's kind of where I started getting a bit more into doing the research and the sort of the start of that learning bathtub curve, right? That learning phase. So I mean, it was just a case of finding out as much as I could about the M140i, and that's kind of where I started getting drawn into that side of things. And then it was just a case of having the car and starting to do things like take photos and just doing little bits and bobs, and then going down the modification route. We did that trip out to Cheltenham to get the limited slip diff fitted. Of course, to the 140, and just building it up into what I sort of had in my mind as what I wanted the 140 to look and feel like. And we largely got there. And then after that came what we've got at the moment, which was the F10 M5. And that's been an absolute blast. Collection day was a good laugh. I mean, that's an entirely separate episode.
Absolutely, I think that is for sure.
But that's kind of where I'm up to in my car journey. Where we've got the M5 was something I'd always see, and think that's a cool car. And that's something I want. When that Richard Hammond episode for me was like, that's a cool car. That's amazing. The platform, I guess the dynamic nature of what an M5 is. Keep it on the road, keep it out the hedges, and it's happy. And it
absolutely.
What was your sort of your car?
My first car, my brother and I shared. It was a green VW Polo. We then after that moved on to another Polo. Went from a 1.4 litre Polo, it was a Polo Twist, I remember this well, onto a Z3 Roadster. So at the time it was like, 21 years old, and I was all about, really, really loved the Z3, because of course it was in GoldenEye. I think that's the one everyone remembers, right? GoldenEye. So I had a Z3 in Estoril blue, with a contrasting roof in the slightly darker blue. It had the BBS style rims on it. It was an incredibly smart car. Black leathers inside. It was a manual gearbox. It was a 2.2, so it was only the 2.2. Obviously a straight six though, naturally aspirated, absolutely brilliant car. I look back on that car and I think, what a machine. It was superb. What I swapped it for is probably one of my biggest disappointments as a car owner. So at the time there was a big push towards diesel, and everyone was like, buy a diesel. I was going to pro the diesel idea, but my brother, who was doing trips to the Midlands quite a lot, he says to me, no, you should buy a diesel. You should totally buy a diesel. And in the back of my mind, I knew full well the reason why he was saying buy a diesel is because, of course, he wants to make the most of the economy, right? That was a 118 diesel. It was a nice car. The E87 is a great car, right? But just not the diesel. We were saying earlier, it equates to a 130i, E87, brilliant car.
That's definitely on the cards for a truck build.
So then the 118 diesel kept for a while. But then I thought, no, do you know what? I'm about done with this. I'm so done with diesel. I was never really overly in love with that car. Then my wife and I, we bought a Polo when we got married, because it was a bit of a change, because she wasn't so keen on driving a more powerful car. So I said, okay, cool, look, just get used to Polo, that's fine, not an issue. She had a Polo before we got married as well, so that was kind of her car before, and 52 plate. But obviously then we bought a 12 plate Polo. Then I had a few company cars, which happened to be Golfs.
Right.
They were all 1.6 Golfs, diesels nonetheless, So I have done my fair share of oil burning.
I fear we're not done yet.
No, we're not. No, absolutely. So after the Golfs, a Z4 Roadster. It happened with a 2.5 straight six, the N52. So naturally aspirated, brilliant car. Again, a manual gearbox with the most beautiful soundtrack. It really was. That had Dream Red Oregon leathers inside, and it was Stratus Grey on the outside. And we sold that knowing full well, oh, hold on a minute, we've almost forgotten one of the most important ones during that time as well, which of course was a 728i. And that was, the M52 engine, which was petrol straight six, epic car, steel blue metallic, really lovely car, with a Montana grey interior, and I absolutely adored that car. M parallels, it was just a beautiful 728i Sport. So
had that classic BMW.
Yeah, it did.
Design language.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
So the way it looked and the way it sort of stood, it was.
I definitely think it's undoubtedly the best looking 7 Series.
Mm-hmm.
Even with today's kind of forwardism and so on and so forth that they're talking about, and the more architectural design, I definitely don't think that they have managed to match what they did with the E38. So anyway, the E38 was with us until probably it was last year September, I think it was. And I then sold the E38, which was in stunning condition. It still had a full toolkit, by the way, and that was a good thing, with the original Michelin tyre on the full M parallel wheel in the back. It was an absolute minter. It still had the torch in the glove compartment as well.
I remember those torches.
Yeah. Although the glove compartment did stop working, which was a weak point in the E38. We had the M140i around the same time you guys did, right?
Yeah, pretty
much. About a week apart, I think. The 140, brilliant car. And again, that will be another one for us to discuss at some point, because they just are, you hit the nail on the head, they are such special cars.
Yeah, I definitely thought it was.
It's the most incredible configuration of rear-wheel drive hatch with a big straight six up front.
E58 with a Z8 gearbox.
Epic.
Just
epic
ready to go, ready to go.
So anyway, that one we'll come back to that. So the 140, ours happened to be in Valencia Orange, obviously. But I guess for those who are in the know, the launch colour for the 1M, a bit like Sakir Orange, when they're cleaned up,
they just
pop.
Look. Yeah,
they're a real summer car.
Look incredible.
Yeah. One car that's been on my radar for a very long time, the E60 M5. V10 power, yes, it's got the SMG, the dreaded SMG.
That wasn't the biggest problem of it, right?
No. Obviously the biggest issue was, for some people, the looks, subjective. And for many people, the rod bearings. Yeah, there was something about the S85 V10 with it obviously being this incredibly special kind of engine that was just built for the M5 and the M6 at the time. Naturally aspirated ITBs, that kind of 507 horsepower. I mean, let's be honest, who doesn't drive it with the M button pressed all the time?
That's just
the reality is, whether you're driving it in 400 horsepower mode or 507 horsepower mode doesn't really matter. The reality is you're still going to get about 8 miles to a gallon. She's a thirsty beast.
But you're getting those 8 miles to a gallon in a screaming V10.
Why BMW for you?
Oof. That's a good question. I don't know, it's just... So I never was actually looking for a BMW when we got the 320i.
Okay.
I wasn't actively looking for a BM.
Yeah.
I was just looking for something that did the job and looked good.
Sure.
So we found this 320i online, and it was owned by a German doctor who she basically drove between London, pretty much between here and Munich for work.
Oh wow!
So the car had done about 30,000 miles, but looked brand new because it had only ever been driven on motorways.
Motorways and autobahns, right?
Yeah. So
yeah,
the car
absolutely.
was in like amazing condition.
Yeah.
So yeah, it fit the bill, and that's
Brilliant.
kind of where the BMW thing started. It wasn't something I had certainly hadn't grown up with BMWs. Granddad had a BMW, which I remember pretty well. It was a black 316i, but we hadn't.
Oh, an E30.
Yeah, but we hadn't
brilliant.
had it wasn't a sort of stereotypical Indian thing where it's all BMWs and Mercs, right? So it was just a case of finding something that
Well, you grew up in West London, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
for you grew up in West London.
Yeah.
And there's quite a strong BMW community in the area, right?
There is.
Or German car manufacturer community, I think is probably a better way of putting it.
Yeah. So for me, it was a case of finding something that fit the bill, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and truth be told, originally I was looking for an Audi A4. That's the car that I like the look of.
Okay.
So yeah, that's kind of where it started for me, and then
our friends in Ingolstadt.
Ingolstadt, indeed. So then we, before we went to Munich.
Okay.
So it was a case of the
the wrong part of the area, right?
The 320i worked. That was what, and then it was just from there. It was just a case of, like I said, doing some research, coming across Joe's videos, talking to people, and getting an idea of what else was out there. I know, early on I sort of had an idea of like the M cars obviously being the top of the range as far as BMWs go, but they've always been unobtainable to an extent, and always been out of reach. Which is, I mean, that's pretty much to be expected when you're a 21, 22-year-old, right?
Yeah, no, of course, because
especially if that's the sort of environment that you're in.
Yeah.
It wasn't it wasn't the kind of thing you typically be shooting for.
Of course,
so
yeah.
It was just a case of finding something that worked. And then, obviously you careers and, personal growth and all the rest of that good stuff. I got to a point where I was like, I can get a 140i. This works.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So and it was only when I got the 140i that I, again, like I said, started paying attention to cars, the car scene, becoming a bit of a petrol head, and then doing the research, joining forums, talking to people, piston heads, baby BMW, all that kind of stuff. It was from there that I started sort of growing a fondness, if you like, for BMWs, just because of the way the cars looked. Before we got the M5, there was a period of time where I wanted the M4.
Okay,
because of the way it looked, the aggressiveness, the stance, the wide choice for aftermarket mods to really fine tune the look and feel of the car. And then obviously the same goes for the M5 and whatever else.
Sure.
So for me, the BMW journey didn't necessarily start with the 320i because that was just a means to an end. It kind of started with the 140i.
Fair enough.
That's kind of where I sort of started paying attention and getting into it a bit more.
Cool.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I guess same question to you.
My dad's one of my dad's first cars was an E30 316, not the 316i. It was a 316. It was in acacia green, an E30. It had the bottle cap wheels on it, and it had a cloth green interior. It wasn't manual. It was only a 4-pot, but God, I remember that car so well. We went everywhere in that car. Back in Kenya, my granddad had a 7 Series. He had an E23 728i, and from what I hear, it's a perfect runner.
I guess that's what you expect when you look after them, right?
Absolutely. You look after them and they'll look after you. Yeah, brilliant. All right. Well, look, Sonny, thank you for this evening. I really appreciate you taking the time.
I'm just glad that we decided to make a start with this.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was a long time coming, and I'm glad we've just got this first sort of episode in the books. A lot of work has sort of gone on over the last
around the background, kind of
month or so,
piecing things together and so on. But look, we're going to go and take Peggy for a walk. It's
as advised by
Zeus, Zeus, Zeus,
and Zeus.